OpenAI just signed the kind of deal that makes the entire AI boom look either unstoppable or insane. Almost $12 billion of compute, one contract, 5 years, for the company that made ChatGPT, and that is the problem. Because if OpenAI is right, this is the new railroad, the new cloud, the new operating system for work, the thing everyone builds on, pays for, automates with, and cannot afford to ignore. But if OpenAI is wrong, then the AI boom has a terrifying hole in the middle of it. Not because nobody uses AI, that is the lazy take. People use it constantly, developers use it, students use it, companies use it. Your boss is probably using it while pretending he is above it. The scary question is much sharper than that. What if everyone uses AI and the economics still do not work? That is the nightmare version. That is how you get a bubble that does not pop because a product is fake. It pops because a product is real, useful, popular, and still too expensive to deliver. So yes, I think the AI bubble is bursting. And also no, I do not think AI is going away. Both are true. That contradiction is the whole story. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this. Now, back to the video. The number's $11.9 billion. That is the contract value CoreWeave announced with OpenAI in March. CoreWeave said it would provide dedicated compute capacity for OpenAI model training and services. Reuters described it as a 5-year cloud computing contract, and if you only read that sentence one way, it sounds bullish. OpenAI needs more compute because demand is huge. ChatGPT has become one of the fastest adopted consumer products in history. Developers are not just asking chatbots questions anymore. They are letting models write code, review code, search repos, fix bugs, call tools, and sit inside the actual workflow. Companies are not buying AI because it is cute. They are buying it because if it works, it replaces time. And time is the most expensive line item in software. So of course, OpenAI wants more GPUs. Of course, it wants locked-in capacity. Of course, the infrastructure providers want to sign long contracts while the market is desperate. From the bull side, the $12 billion deal is not a warning. It is proof. You do not sign a contract like that if you think the product is a toy. You sign it if you think demand is about to explode. And the uncomfortable thing for the bears is this. They have been calling AI a bubble while the usage kept going up. They said people would stop using chatbots after the novelty faded. They did not. They said companies would stop paying for AI after pilot projects failed. Some did, but the category kept growing. They said open models would destroy the labs. Open models got better, and the big labs still raised money, shipped models, sold subscriptions, and expanded enterprise deals. So if your entire bubble argument is that AI is useless, I think you already lost. The product is useful, that part is settled. The real argument is not usefulness, it is margin. Here's the bearish case said as strongly as I can say it. OpenAI has built one of the most valuable consumer software products ever, and the financial story still looks ugly. Reported financial disclosures said OpenAI generated around $4.3 billion of revenue in the first half of 2025. That was already more than it made in all of 2024. That sounds incredible. Then you look at the bill. The same reporting said the company burned $2.5 billion in cash in that half. Research and development costs were reported around $6.7 billion. Cost of revenue was reported above $2.5 billion, and later reporting on leaked financial documents put 2025 revenue around $13 billion, with costs and expenses around $34 billion. That is a sentence that should freeze the room. $13 billion of revenue is enormous. $34 billion of cost is more enormous. And that is before you even get into the accounting noise around conversion, warrants, interests, and all the strange financial machinery around OpenAI becoming a more normal company. The operating point is simpler. The money coming in is huge. The money going out is huger. That is not a typo, Hooger, because normal software has a beautiful trick. You build it once, then you sell it many times. Yes, servers cost money. Yes, support costs money. But the dream is that each extra customer gets cheaper to serve. AI is different. Every answer is work. Every prompt burns compute. Every longer context window burns more compute. Every agent that loops, searches, edits, verifies, retries, and calls tools burns even more compute. The product is not just software. It is software plus electricity, plus chips, plus data centers, plus networking, plus cooling, plus capacity planning, plus the next model you have not trained yet. And the next model is always waiting with a knife and an invoice. That is why the $12 billion deal matters. It is not just OpenAI buying growth, it is OpenAI pre-committing to the belief that future demand will be big enough, expensive enough, and sticky enough to pay for today's infrastructure. If that curve misses even a little, the whole stack feels it. CoreWeave feels it, Oracle feels it, Microsoft feels it, NVIDIA feels it, startups building on cheap inference feel it, developers using generous subscriptions feel it because somebody has to pay for the tokens, and right now the industry is playing a very weird game. It is training users to expect magic for $20 a month. It is training companies to expect automation before the cost model is fully proven. It is training developers to send bigger prompts, bigger repos, bigger context, and bigger agent runs. Then it is trying to convince investors that all of this becomes profitable once scale arrives, but scale is already arriving. That is the awkward part. OpenAI is not a tiny startup waiting for product market fit. It has one of the biggest products in the world, and the losses are still massive. So the bear case is not that AI is fake, the bear case is worse. The bear case is that AI is real, but the Frontier Lab business model is structurally hungry. It eats capital. It eats chips, it eats power, it eats every efficiency gain by making the next model bigger, faster, more agentic, and more available. If that is true, then the AI bubble does not burst with one dramatic crash. It bursts as repricing, more expensive subscriptions, lower free tiers, tighter rate limits, cheaper models routed by default, enterprise contracts that get inspected by finance teams, infrastructure stocks punished for concentration risk, and a lot of startups discovering that their margin was actually a promotional subsidy wearing a hoodie. Now here's the bullish case, said just as strongly. Almost every great infrastructure company looked financially ridiculous before the market understood the asset. Amazon spent years being called a bookstore with no profits. Netflix spent enormous amounts on content and delivery before streaming became obvious. Tesla looked impossible until the factory machine started working. Cloud computing looked expensive before everyone realized rent and compute was going to become the default way software runs. The bull case says OpenAI is not burning money because the business is broken. It is burning money because it is building capacity before the demand wave fully arrives. And this time, the demand wave is not theoretical. Hundreds of millions of people already learned the behavior, ask the model, paste the error, summarize the file, rewrite the email, explain the logs, refactor the function, generate the test, make the spreadsheet. That behavior is not going back into the box. Even if OpenAI disappeared tomorrow, the habit would remain. The bull case says that is the important thing. AI is becoming a default interface, not a website you visit. And an interface that gets embedded into editors, browsers, phones, support tools, databases, design tools, spreadsheets, terminals, and operating systems. And if OpenAI owns enough of that interface, the current losses become the cost of buying the future. Also, the bearish math can be too static. It looks at today's inference cost and assumes the pain stays fixed. But model serving gets optimized. Hardware improves. Custom chips arrive. Smaller models handle more tasks. Routing gets smarter. Caching gets better. Distillation gets better. And most prompts do not need the biggest model on earth. That matters because the profitable AI company may not be the one that gives every user the most powerful model every time. It may be the one that quietly routes 90% of requests to cheaper systems while saving the expensive frontier model for the moments that actually need it. If OpenAI can do that, the margin story changes not overnight, but enough. And there's another bull argument people underplay. OpenAI does not need every random chatbot conversation to be profitable in isolation if the real money moves to business workflows. A developer paying $20 a month is nice. A company paying for thousands of employees, internal agents, code review, customer support, sales operations, data analysis, and workflow automation is different. If the model saves 10 minutes on a task that happens a million times a month, the value is not the token price. The value is the labor it displaces, compresses, or redirects. That is why the bull case can stare directly at the losses and still say, fine, you're watching the install base phase. First, you make the behavior normal, then you make the product unavoidable, then you monetize the workflows where the value is obvious. And if that works, $12 billion of compute is not a warning sign. It is inventory. The annoying truth is that both sides are cheating a little. The AI skeptics often pretend usage does not matter. That is silly. Usage matters. If a product reaches this scale, changes work habits, and keeps people paying, you cannot dismiss it as a JPEG mania clone. This is not a picture of a rock selling for millions. This is a tool people open because it does something. But the AI believers also pretend revenue is the same as business quality. That is also silly. Revenue can grow while a company destroys capital. Revenue can grow while customers are underpriced. Revenue can grow because the product is subsidized. Revenue can grow because the market is in a race and nobody wants to blink first. The question is not whether OpenAI can sell AI, it can. The question is whether OpenAI can sell AI at a price that pays for the model raise, the infrastructure raise, the talent raise, and the investor expectation sitting on top of all of it. That is a much harder question, and this is where I get opinionated. I think the AI bubble is bursting in the financial layer. I do not think it is bursting in the usage layer. Those are different. The usage layer is strong. People like the product. Developers especially like the product, even when they complain about it, because a good model can save real time. The financial layer is where the fantasy has been living. The fantasy is that every company in the chain can be worth an absurd multiple at the same time: the model lab, the chip company, the cloud provider, the neo cloud, the AI coding startup, the AI wrapper, the enterprise agent platform, the data center owner, the power supplier. Everybody cannot capture the same dollar. At some point, the customer pays one bill, and that bill gets split across the stack. If the model lab needs huge margin, the cloud provider wants margin, the chip supplier wants margin, and the app company wants margin, then the customer has to pay a lot. But if the customer will not pay a lot, somebody's valuation is wrong. That is the bubble, not AI, the assumption that every layer of AI infrastructure can price like it owns the whole future. The CoreWeave deal is such a perfect symbol because it turns the abstract bubble debate into a calendar. 5 years, almost $12 billion dedicated capacity. OpenAI gets compute, CoreWeave gets a massive customer, investors get a story, but the trap is that infrastructure deals are made before the future is certain. You cannot wait until demand is perfectly proven and then magically summon data centers, chips, power, and networking. You have to build ahead. That means a serious AI company must look reckless before it looks inevitable. But bubbles also look reckless before they look obvious. That is why this is hard. The exact same evidence supports both stories. Huge compute contract, bull says demand is coming. Bear says the CapEx is outrunning the business. Big revenue growth, bull says product market fit. Bear says subsidized consumption. Rapid model improvement, bull says capability unlock. Bear says constant reinvestment treadmill. Enterprise adoption, bull says budgets are moving. Bear says pilots are not turning into enough profit. Price cuts, bull says cheaper tokens unlock more usage. Bear says margins are compressing before the industry is mature. Both sides can point at the same chart and feel smart. That is usually where money gets dangerous. For developers, the real question is practical. What changes if the AI bubble is bursting financially but not technologically? First, expect the free lunch to shrink. The most generous plans in AI are probably not stable forever. If you're using an agent all day, pasting giant context, asking for multiple attempts, and paying a flat subscription, you should assume the provider is doing math in the background. Maybe that math works, maybe it does not. But the industry is not going to ignore heavy users forever. Second, expect model routing to get more aggressive. You may think you're using one flagship model. Under the hood, more products will route simple work to cheaper models, reserve expensive models for harder work, and hide more of that complexity behind a single product name. That is not automatically bad. It might make products cheaper and faster, but it means the brand on the button matters less than the system behind it. Third, expect local and open models to matter more, not less. If cloud AI gets more expensive or more restricted, developers will keep looking for ways to run useful models closer to the code. Not because local models always beat the frontier labs, they do not. But because predictable cost is a feature, privacy is a feature, offline access is a feature, and for boring coding tasks, the best economics might come from a smaller model that is good enough. Fourth, expect the AI coding market to split. There will be premium tools that charge more and justify it with reliability. There will be cheaper tools that route aggressively. There will be open source tools that let you bring your own model, and there will be a graveyard of products that were only possible because someone else was eating the compute bill. That is healthy, painful, but healthy, because it forces AI products to stop selling magic and start proving value. So is the AI bubble bursting? Yes, but not the way people want it to burst. There's no clean movie scene where everyone wakes up and stops using AI. That is not happening. The product crossed the line from novelty into workflow. The habit is real, the developer value is real, the enterprise interest is real, the infrastructure demand is real, but the valuation story is starting to crack. The assumption that bigger models automatically create bigger profits is cracking. The assumption that every compute contract will be justified by future demand is cracking. The assumption that $20 a month can buy unlimited intelligence forever is cracking. And the assumption that all AI growth is equally valuable is cracking hardest of all. OpenAI's $12 billion reality check is not proof that AI is dead. It is proof that AI has reached the part of the cycle where the product has to grow up. No more hiding behind demos. No more pretending every token is strategic. No more acting like usage alone answers the margin question. The next phase of AI is going to be less romantic, more pricing pages, more limits, more procurement, more routing, more boring questions from finance teams, more pressure to show exactly where the time savings turn into money. And honestly, that might be good, because if AI really is as important as its believers say, it should survive contact with a spreadsheet. If it cannot, then the bubble was not the technology. The bubble was the story wrapped around the technology. That is the contradiction I keep coming back to. AI can be transformative and overvalued. OpenAI can be a generational company and a financial warning sign. The $12 billion contract can be both a flex and a trap, and developers can benefit from AI while still being skeptical of the company selling it. That is where I land. Use the tools, Learn the systems, watch the prices, do not confuse adoption with profit, and do not confuse a bursting bubble with the end of the thing inside it. Sometimes the bubble pops because the thing is fake, sometimes it pops because the thing is real, and the bill finally arrives.